Hey there, friends. I'm doing this, wasn't going to do another video right now, but Robert Freeman, photographer Robert Freeman, just passed away. He passed on December 7th, 2019, in London, I believe. British photographer, lived in Spain a good portion of later in his life, was a graphic designer, photographer. If you don't know Robert Freeman's name, you know his work. So I'm going to just do a little last minute brief overview on Robert Freeman. He did more Beatle covers, album covers, than any other photographer. Shot this album in Bournemouth in a hotel hallway with just one natural lighting, with a window open at the end of the hallway to bring the natural light in and position them. This is not a doctored or composited photo. This is the way it was shot. Robert Freeman. So when the Beatles were touring England, that was in 1963. Did the covers for A Hard Day's Night. He also designed and put together the end credit sequences for both A Hard Day's Night and Help. He photographed the wonderful Beatles For Sale in Hyde Park in London. No, I don't think he did the performance shot, but he photographed the Great Album. It's one of the first albums, the Great Album Rubber Soul, one of the very first albums by any artist that did not have the artist's name on the cover. And when he was projecting the images for the Beatles, he had a piece of cardboard to project on from the slide projector, and it kind of fell down, was bent, and that's why they all loved it when the concave, convex screen turned and twisted warped the image. That's why we have this final cover. And then he shot the cover photographs for Help, originally intended as semaphore, if you know semaphore flag, to spell out help, but the positioning didn't work, so it doesn't spell out anything. The actual images they shot didn't work, so that does not spell out help. It does not spell ouch. It does not spell anything. Then, of course, some of the American counterparts, just, you know these records, but since we're on profiling the great Robert Freeman, great photographer. And of course, from the end credit, same as the UK cover, different song order and song selection somewhat, but we're not talking about music, we're talking about the photography. Also, he photographed and designed the John Lennon's books, A Spaniard in the Work, and In His Own Right. It's a reissue of it. These are original copies from 1964. Nice hat, John. Spaniard in the works. A Spaniard in the works. I'll show you some of his books in a minute, but I was fortunate enough to meet him 2003 and met him 3 times over the years, and at one point he gave me a signed copy of a proof sheet for John's early book covers. To Norman, Robert Freeman. He also gave me this photograph of Brian Epstein, obviously the manager of the Beatles. Several of his books, variations of his books. The original hardcover of Yesterday, forward by Paul McCartney. Those of you who follow the Beatles will recognize quite a few of his photographs. I always wanted a print of this. I almost bought one from him, but I didn't have any, and then we corresponded for a while, and then just kind of, I forgot to follow up, and he didn't respond at one point. I know he was sick the last few years, but I love that shot of the Beatle boots. And basically a paperback version of the same book. Another version. But what a great cover. Been parodied so many times, right? And probably the one book, the fabulous book, and I have a couple of different versions of it, A Private View. And here's the limited edition version I got from him back in mid-2000s in a clamshell case. And let's take a look at this. I'm here. I haven't gone away. It includes a signed print. He was very into the graphics and the art of the graphics as well, not just a photographer. That's why it's great if you know the end, how the black and white pictures in A Hard Day's Night just dissolve together. Those really wonderful graphic close-ups of the Beatles, and also the Beatles sort of fractured images, like fractals in the ring, from the ring that Ringo wears, the reflective nature and the ruby red color at the end of Help. And this is Robert Freeman, A Private View. There's that wonderful picture of Beatle boots. How great is that? I'd love a large print of that, of course. I think one of these books is signed. Not quite sure which one. A couple of these, actually. To the cover of, that's Brian Epstein's autobiography that came out early in '64 as well, A Cellar Full of Noise. Love this picture too. On the set of Help. Beatles in Bahamas. Ringo painted red. Kylie! If you don't know Help, if you don't know what that is, you're not a Beatle fan. Anyway, just wanted to give a nice little overview, little tribute to a wonderful photographer, really gentleman. Had a great eye for photography, a great eye for design. Rest in peace, Robert Freeman. Your art's gonna live forever. Mazzy loves you and take care.